They say the moment your family turns on you haunts you forever. For me, it was my father's fist slamming the dining table, shattering crystal, as he screamed, "Get out!" and every face around that table nodded. I drove away that night with nothing. The next morning, I stood before iron gates overlooking the Pacific, signing ownership papers for a $20 million coastal mansion. It had been in my name for 3 years. My name is Adeline Sullivan. I'm 33 years old, and I'm a senior risk analyst at Northbridge Dynamics, a fact my family has never bothered to understand. Tonight, I was driving my 5-year-old sedan back to the immaculate suburban colonial I grew up in, a place I hadn't visited in nearly 8 months. Clutched in the passenger seat was a ridiculously expensive bottle of Cabernet, a peace offering, or perhaps just a shield. It carried the flimsy, pathetic hope that this time, finally, things would be different. They never were. Pulling into the driveway, I saw the perfect tableau. My father, Daniel Pierce, was visible through the bay window, laughing at something his second wife, Lydia, had said. My half-sister, Riley, was probably scrolling through her phone, curating her next post about how blessed she was. They were the perfect family in a perfect play, a performance I was never cast in, except perhaps as the reluctant off-stage financier. The moment I stepped inside, the wrongness of it hit me. The house was silent, not quiet, but silent, as if holding its breath. The dining room table, usually reserved for Thanksgiving and Christmases I was too busy to attend, was set for a formal state dinner. Fine china, polished silver, and the crystal glasses my grandmother Evelyn had left them. Lydia drifted out of the kitchen to greet me. She was wearing a severe black dress, simple and elegant, better suited for a funeral than a simple family get-together, as my father had phrased it on the phone. "Adeline, you came," she said, her voice a smooth, cool monotone. She didn't hug me. She merely gestured toward the dining room. "Daniel is waiting." The last time I'd seen this much effort, Riley had just announced she was dropping out of her 3rd college to launch a podcast about mindfulness, which apparently required a $10,000 seed investment from my savings account. That was 6 months ago. Before that, it was the down payment on her apartment. Before that, the loan for her ethical jewelry startup that never produced a single piece. Before that, her tuition, her credit card debt. For 20 years, I had been the family ATM. My first loan was for $500 to cover one of my father's unforeseen expenses the month I got my first part-time job at 16. It escalated from there. I sent money home every month from college, living on instant noodles and library coffee, so he could keep the house afloat. I paid for his car repairs. I paid for Lydia's spa weekends, rebranded as mental health retreats. I funded Riley's entire 20s, a decade-long performance of whimsical failure, and I did it because I believed, with the stupid, blinding hope of a child, that one day the deposits would be enough, that one day they would finally see me and not just my bank account. Tonight, that hope felt thinner than ever. We sat down. The food was exquisite, catered, not cooked. Daniel launched into a monologue, not about his work, but about Riley's. Riley's podcast just hit 10,000 downloads, he announced, beaming as he raised his glass. "That's amazing." "Riley," Lydia chimed in. "It's really nothing," Riley said, failing to hide a smirk. "Just a little collab I'm doing with an influencer in Bali. We're aligning our brands." I took a sip of water. "Speaking of work, my team just closed a major risk assessment portfolio for— Oh, Adeline, that reminds me," Lydia cut in, her voice sliding smoothly over mine. "Did you see the new curtains in the den? I found the most wonderful designer." I stopped. The redirection was so blatant, so practiced, it was almost impressive. My job, the one that paid for this house's mortgage arrears last year, was just boring noise. Riley's Instagram photos were achievements. "The curtains are lovely, Lydia," I said, my voice tight. We ate in that tense, performative silence for another 10 minutes. The conversation circled exclusively around Riley, her yoga retreat, her new photographer, her authentic brand. I was an alien at their table, a necessary but uninteresting satellite. Then, as Lydia began clearing the dessert plates, Daniel placed his hands flat on the table. It was a gesture of finality, one I knew from childhood. It meant the time for discussion was over. He slid a thick leather-bound folder across the polished wood. It stopped just short of my wine glass. "This," he said, "is just a formality. Paperwork for your grandmother Evelyn Hart's estate and property. We just need you to sign it so we can close things out." His voice was cold. It wasn't the voice of a father talking to his daughter. It was the voice of a superior addressing a subordinate who was holding up the meeting. I opened the folder. My hands were steady. My analyst training kicked in, pushing the hurt down, bringing the pattern recognition up. It was thick, maybe 50 pages, legalese. My eyes scanned the text, looking for keywords. Transfer of assets. Reorganization of existing trust. Beneficiary designated on behalf of the family. Relinquish all further claims. It was intentionally confusing. It was a mess of vague clauses designed to look official while saying nothing specific. It was a document built to hide its true purpose. "Dad," I said slowly, closing the folder, "this is more than a formality. These are complex financial documents related to Grandma's legacy." "It's simple, Adeline," he said, his patience already fraying. "It consolidates everything. It's for the family. I'm not signing this tonight." The words hung in the air, heavy and shocking. The fork stopped. The breathing stopped. I had never, in 33 years, said no to a financial request. "What did you say?" Daniel's voice was dangerously quiet. "I said I'm not signing it," I repeated, my own voice surprising me with its strength. "I'm going to have my attorney review this. This is Grandma Evelyn's will we're talking about, not a permission slip." The table froze. Lydia let out a small, theatrical gasp, placing a hand on her chest as if I had wounded her. "Adeline, after all your father has done." Riley laughed. It was a short, bitter bark. "God, you always have to make everything so difficult, don't you? It's always a drama with you." "Riley, stay out of this," I said, my eyes locked on my father. His face was turning a deep, mottled red. The veins in his neck stood out. He had expected a quick signature. He had expected the same compliant, desperate-to-please daughter he had always known. He was not prepared for a risk analyst. "You," he seethed, "will sign this. Tonight. It is a family matter." "It's a legal matter," I corrected him, "and I'm not signing." He exploded. His fist came down on the table with a crash that vibrated through my chest. The crystal wine glass beside his plate, my grandmother's crystal, jumped, shattered, and sprayed a fan of dark Cabernet across the white linen tablecloth. It looked exactly like arterial blood. "Get out." The scream echoed in the silent room. It was raw, primal, full of a rage that had been simmering just beneath the surface of his polished charm for my entire life. "Get out of my house." I looked around the table. This was the moment where someone, anyone, steps in. Lydia was staring down at her lap, the perfect, blameless victim. Riley had her arms crossed, a look of smug, triumphant victory on her face. She had won. The interloper was finally being ejected. And then I looked at my mother, my real mother, Monica. She sat at the far end of the table, invited tonight as some bizarre gesture of reconciliation. She hadn't said a word all evening. She looked at me, her eyes wide with something. Fear, pity, I didn't care. And she looked away. She picked up her napkin and dabbed at her lips. She said nothing. They all said nothing. And in that deafening silence, I understood. This wasn't a family dinner. It was an ambush. The formal table, the funeral dress, the silent mother, the confusing documents. It was a pre-planned, coordinated attack. Either I signed away my grandmother's legacy, or I would be excommunicated. They had already decided the outcome before I'd even pulled into the driveway. My refusal was just the trigger they were waiting for. I stood up. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor, a sound as violent as a scream. I looked at Daniel, his face still contorted with rage. I looked at Lydia, the picture of wounded innocence. I looked at Riley, who was already pulling out her phone, probably to text her friends about the drama, and I looked at my mother, who refused to meet my gaze. "Okay," I said. My voice was calm. It was empty. "I'm gone." I didn't grab my coat. I didn't grab the unopened bottle of wine. I walked out of the dining room, through the silent foyer, and out the front door into the cold night air. I walked with my spine straight, even as I felt my heart tearing apart inside my chest. As I fumbled for my car keys, my headlights flashed. They illuminated a black SUV parked across the street, engine idling. The windows were tinted so dark I couldn't see inside, but I didn't need to. I felt it. Someone was in there, watching me. But I was too numb, too broken, to care about a stranger in a car. I had just been disowned by my entire family. I sat in my car, parked at the curb, just down the street from the house. I was no longer welcome in. My hands were on the steering wheel, shaking so hard I could barely see the dashboard. The echo of the slammed door, the shattered glass, the finality of "get out" was a high-pitched ringing in my ears. I was 33 years old and, for all intents and purposes, an orphan. My phone, lying face down on the passenger seat, buzzed. The screen lit up with a text from an unknown number. "They planned this tonight. Don't sign. M." I stared at the capital letters. M. My mother, Monica, the woman who had sat silent, sipping her water, as I was verbally crucified. The message was a gesture, yes, but it was hours too late. A coward's warning shot fired long after the battle was lost. It confirmed what I already knew. The whole night was a setup. As I read the text again, a flash of movement caught my eye. Across the street, the black SUV, its headlights snapped on, cutting through the dark, and it pulled away from the curb with a smooth, unhurried confidence. It didn't speed. It just left. The feeling of being watched intensified, replaced by the new, colder realization that they had been waiting to see if I would break, waiting to see if I would sign, and when I didn't, they simply drove away. Their observation complete. The M text felt even smaller, a pathetic whisper against the reality of that silent, menacing vehicle. I should have driven back to my apartment in the city. I should have gone home, triple-locked the door, and fallen apart in a familiar, safe space. Instead, I put the car in drive and turned right, away from the city, away from my life. I drove. I had no destination. I just needed the hum of the engine and the blur of the streetlights to replace the loop of my father's voice, Riley's smirk, my mother's silence. I drove until the suburban streets melted into the wide, empty lanes of the freeway. I just followed the flow of the sparse late-night traffic, my mind blessedly, terrifyingly blank. After an hour, maybe more, I saw the sign. Coastal Highway. Without thinking, I took the exit. The car climbed the dark, winding roads, the air outside growing colder, saltier. This was my grandmother Evelyn's territory. My childhood, split between two households, was a study in contrasts. Dinners at Daniel's house were tense, transactional, full of unspoken rules and financial obligations disguised as family concerns. Summers with Evelyn were freedom. She didn't have much, or so I thought. She lived in a series of rented apartments and, during the summers, would take me to the coast. We never stayed in fancy hotels. We stayed in cheap motels with peeling paint and ice machines that rumbled all night. We would sit on the scratchy sand, not at a polished dining table, and eat French fries out of a paper bag, the salt and vinegar stinging our lips. She would tell me stories, not fairy tales, but stories about her life, about bad investments and worse men, about the value of $1 and the freedom of having your go-to-hell fund. Never let a man be your financial plan. Addie, she'd say, brushing sand from her knees, especially not one who shares your blood. They're the ones who feel the most entitled to what's yours. I hadn't thought of that in years. Tonight, it felt less like advice and more like a prophecy I had failed to heed. I kept driving until I saw the iron gates of a scenic overlook, closed for the night but with a small pedestrian walkway. I parked the car, the only one there, and got out. The wind was violent, whipping my hair across my face, tasting of salt and cold ocean. I walked to the metal railing, my knuckles white as I gripped it. I stared down at the black, churning water, the white foam of the waves just barely visible in the moonlight. I just got kicked out of my family, I said aloud. My voice was stolen by the wind, but I needed to hear the words. He yelled, "Get out," and they all agreed. I said it again. I'm done. I just got exiled. A laugh, sharp and painful, escaped my chest. Exiled. A 33-year-old risk analyst. Exiled by a B-list cast of suburban tyrants. And the worst part? The only part that felt like a pinprick of light in the crushing darkness? It was the relief. I never had to sit at that table again. I never had to brace for the next financial emergency. I never had to audition for the role of good daughter again. The audition was over. I hadn't gotten the part. I was free, and I was utterly, completely alone. My phone rang. The sudden shrill noise in the vast silence of the wind and waves made me jump. I fumbled in my pocket, expecting to see my father's name, ready with a second wave of vitriol. Or maybe my mother, calling to explain her useless text. It was an unknown number. The clock on the screen read 2:07 a.m. I answered, my voice rough from the cold. Hello? Is this Adeline Sullivan? The voice was female, sharp, and all business, not a trace of sleepiness in it. Yes, who is this? My name is Veronica Dale. I'm with the law firm of Dale and Morley. I was your grandmother Evelyn Hart's attorney. My blood went cold. A lawyer, at 2 a.m. Is something wrong? Her estate was settled, wasn't it? That, Veronica Dale said, her voice tight with controlled anger, is what I've been trying to discuss with you all day. I've been calling your cell, and your father has been answering. What? He's been intercepting my calls, telling me you were indisposed, that you were grieving and unable to handle finances, and that he, as your father, was managing your affairs. He assured me you would be signing some documents tonight to simplify the process. I didn't like the sound of that, and I've been sitting on this for months, honoring your grandmother's timeline. But then I got a call from an associate who informed me that you were just forcibly removed from your father's home. I leaned heavily against the railing. An associate? Your grandmother had many friends. The point is, your father's actions tonight have forced my hand. We are now officially past procedure. I am disregarding my previous instructions and telling you the truth, right now. I waited. The wind howled. Adeline, your grandmother's estate was not settled. According to her final, binding will, you are the sole beneficiary of her entire asset portfolio. I blinked, confused. What portfolio? She had a small pension, maybe a life insurance policy. My father, handled her expenses. A dry, mirthless laugh came through the phone. Your father handled nothing. Your grandmother, Ms. Sullivan, was worth approximately $38 million. The words didn't compute. It was like she was speaking a different language. 38 million? That's a conservative estimate, pending the final liquidation of her market assets. But that's not why I'm calling you at 2 a.m. It's not? I said, my voice a squeak. No, I'm calling about the house, the property at Coronado Cove. I don't know what that is. It's a coastal mansion valued at just over $20 million. It was the centerpiece of her portfolio, and she knew your father. She knew him very, very well. She knew he would try to control her money, and when he couldn't, she knew he would try to control you to get to it. The papers, I whispered, the papers he wanted me to sign tonight, were likely an attempt to gain power of attorney over you, or to trick you into signing control of the trust over to him. It's irrelevant now, because of what your grandmother did 3 years ago. What did she do? She knew a will could be contested. She knew Daniel would fight it, drag it out, bleed the estate dry with lawyers, claim you exerted undue influence. So, 3 years ago, Evelyn Hart made an irrevocable, non-contestable, tax-paid gift. She transferred the deed and title of the Coronado Cove property entirely into your name. Adeline, you don't inherit the mansion. You have owned it, free and clear, for 36 months. I slid down the railing and collapsed onto the cold, damp grass at the edge of the cliff. I was holding the phone to my ear, but my entire world had tilted on its axis. I own a $20 million house. You do, Veronica said, her voice softening for the first time. It's been managed by a private property group, paid for by a separate trust. Waiting for you. Evelyn's instructions were clear. She wanted to let your father play out his hand, as she put it. She wanted you to see him for who he was, without her interference. But she also left you a fortress. Veronica cleared her throat. She also left me a note to read to you, only in the event that this exact scenario played out. She said, Veronica, if that greedy bastard Daniel ever lays a trap for my Addie, you call her, and you read this. Are you ready? I couldn't speak. I just made a sound. My dearest Adeline, Veronica read, her voice taking on the warm, gravelly tone I remembered so well. If you are hearing this, it means your father has finally tried to use you to steal what does not belong to him. Do not mourn the family you thought you had. It was a cage, and you were its keeper. Today, you were set free. Your inheritance is not just the money or the house. It is the truth. Now, go to your home, the real one, and find out who you are when you are no longer paying for everyone else's approval. A sob tore from my throat. It was half a gasp, half a laugh. It was the most insane, hysterical sound I had ever made. I was sitting on a cliff, having been kicked out of a beige suburban colonial like an ungrateful teenager, while for 3 years, a $20 million mansion on the ocean had my name on the mailbox. I was homeless, and I was a millionaire, 20 times over. Veronica? I managed, wiping my tears, which were now mixing with laughter. I'm here, Adeline. I know it's a lot. It's a lot, I agreed, the hysteria bubbling up again. What do I do now? Now, Veronica said, her businesslike tone clicking back into place. You get some rest. If you can, tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, I will meet you at the gates of Coronado Cove. I have the keys, the alarm codes, and another envelope from your grandmother. One she instructed me to give you only after you had seen the house with your own eyes. Okay, I said, my voice shaking. 10:00, I'll be there. Good. And Adeline? Yes? Welcome home. I slept for maybe 2 hours in a cheap motel off the highway, the kind with thin walls and a smell of bleach that clings to the air. I showered, put on the same clothes I'd been kicked out in, and drove, fueled by adrenaline and stale coffee. At 10 o'clock sharp, I pulled up to a set of massive, 20-foot-high wrought iron gates. This was not a driveway. This was an entrance. Beyond the bars, a winding road of crushed white stone disappeared into a grove of cypress trees. This was Coronado Cove. Veronica Dale's sensible gray sedan was already parked outside. She got out as I approached, a stark contrast to the opulence of the gates. She was in her late 50s, with sharp eyes and a sharper pantsuit, holding a thick leather portfolio. Ms. Sullivan, you're punctual, she said. I'm running on fumes and shock. Ms. Dale, punctuality is all I have left. She gave a brief, tight-lipped smile. Let's get you inside. She used a keypad, and the massive gate swung open with a smooth, near-silent hydraulic hum. I followed her car up the drive, which snaked along the edge of a hill. The trees cleared, and my foot instinctively hit the brake. The house wasn't a house. It was a statement. It was all white stone and glass, built not just on the cliff, but out of it. It looked less like architecture and more like a natural, crystalline formation. It had 3 stories of sheer glass walls facing the ocean, with wide, cantilevered balconies that seemed to float in the air. It was stark, modern, and looked like it could withstand a hurricane. It looked like it was worth every penny of $20 million. "My God," I whispered. Veronica was waiting for me at the entrance to a 4-car garage. Indeed. The garage itself was cleaner than my apartment, but it wasn't empty. There was a workbench against one wall with a neat row of tools. A large, wall-mounted calendar showed a maintenance schedule from a property management company. Dates for landscaping, pool cleaning, and security system checks were filled in for the next 6 months. "Your grandmother left nothing to chance," Veronica said, noticing my gaze. "This house hasn't been empty. It's been waiting. The staff is managed by the trust. They come, they work, they leave. They have no idea who the owner is, only that the property is to be kept in ready condition at all times." She handed me a heavy rectangular black box. "The keys, house, gates, pool house, the codes are inside, and this," she pulled a thick, cream-colored envelope from her portfolio. It was sealed with wax, and my name was written on the front in my grandmother's elegant, spiky handwriting. "Evelyn's second letter," Veronica explained. Her instructions, again, were precise. "I was to give you this only after you were physically on the property. She said you should read it after you've had a moment to acquaint yourself with the house." "Acquaint myself," I repeated, feeling like Alice who had just fallen down the rabbit hole. "Take a walk. I have some final papers in my car to prep. I'll be in the kitchen when you're ready to sign." She pointed me to a side door, and I stepped inside. The living room was 2 stories high, with a ceiling of dark, exposed wood beams. The entire west wall was gone, replaced by sliding glass doors that looked out onto an infinity pool that seemed to merge directly with the Pacific Ocean. The view was so vast, so blue, it was disorienting. The furniture was minimal, expensive, and comfortable. Deep sofas, wool rugs. It was my grandmother's taste exactly, luxurious, but solid, quality, not flash. I walked through the house in a daze. The kitchen was a chef's dream, all stainless steel and dark marble. I opened the refrigerator out of sheer, morbid curiosity. It was full: milk, eggs, fresh vegetables, bottles of sparkling water, and a container of the specific, expensive olives my grandmother loved. A shiver went down my spine. Evelyn had been dead for 3 months. The property managers were efficient, but this felt personal. I moved down a hallway, my footsteps silent on the stone floors. I felt a strange, creeping sensation. In a house this big, I should have felt alone. Instead, I felt like I had just missed someone. In one of the guest rooms, a room with a perfect ocean view, the cushions on a window seat were slightly indented, as if someone had been sitting there, watching the driveway. In another room, a home office, a single teacup sat on the desk. It was empty, but a dark ring stained the bottom. It wasn't an old stain, it was fresh. I backed out of the room, my heart suddenly hammering. This wasn't a house, it was a stage, perfectly set, and I had just walked onto it. I found the library. It was the only room that felt like her. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, packed with books, a rolling ladder, 2 deep leather armchairs. It smelled of old paper and wood polish. I needed to sit. I sank into one of the chairs, the one facing the wall of shelves, and finally let myself breathe. My eyes drifted over the spines, and then to the dark, carved wood frame of the bookshelf itself. Something was wrong. Near the bottom, at eye level from where I was sitting, the wood was scarred. I knelt. It wasn't damage. It was deliberate. A series of small, shallow scratches, circles, and straight lines had been carved into the ornate frame, mostly hidden by the decorative scrollwork. They weren't decorative. They looked like a key, a cipher. My fingers traced the strange symbols, and the paranoia from the office. The feeling of being watched last night in that black SUV, all of it coalesced. My grandmother had left me a house of secrets. I remembered the envelope. My hands trembled as I broke the wax seal. The letter was 5 pages, handwritten. Addie, if you are reading this, then you are standing in the library of your home. I hope you like it. I chose it for the view, and for the strength of the rock it's built on. You will need both. You are most likely in shock. You are probably angry. You are wondering why I left you to twist in the wind for so long. The answer is simple. I couldn't save you until you were ready to save yourself, and I couldn't do that until you saw your father. Daniel, for the leech he is. I have watched him for 25 years. I watched him live on credit. I watched him build a life he couldn't afford, all on the promise of future earnings that never came. And then, I watched him turn his eyes to you. I watched him monetize your guilt. I watched him bleed you dry, month after month, using your paycheck as his personal line of credit while he called it family obligation. He is a black hole of debt, Addie, and he was perfectly willing to pull you in with him. So I built you an ark. This house is yours. It has been for 3 years. The will I left, the one he is so desperate to control, is a decoy. All my liquid assets are locked in a trust so complex, his lawyers will spend years and get nowhere. I have legally and financially disinherited him. The papers he tried to make you sign last night were his last, desperate attempt to trick you into giving him control, to make you the beneficiary on behalf of the family, so he could drain this too. But this house is not just a gift, it is a vault. There is a secret in this house. Addie, a room, the markings you have found, I know you'd find them, are the beginning. Inside that room is the truth, not just about your father's petty debts, but about why he is so desperate. It is a truth I have spent the last 10 years gathering. It is explosive, and it is dangerous. It involves people you have never met, and it could bring down an entire empire built on filth. This is my real legacy, and it comes with a warning. Do not open that room alone. Do not act. You are a risk analyst. Analyze. Your father is a puppet. You need to find the puppeteer. You need allies. You are smart. But you are not ready for this. Not yet. Be safe. Be smart. Welcome home. Evelyn. I read the letter 3 times. My mind was racing, trying to process explosive truth, an empire built on filth. My father wasn't just a bad dad. He was a criminal and a puppet. Veronica knocked softly on the open library door. Are you ready? I stood up, folding the letter, my hands steady again. The shock was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I was no longer Adeline Sullivan, the family ATM. I was Adeline Sullivan, the owner of a $20 million fortress and a mission. I walked with her to the kitchen, on the massive marble island. She had a small, neat stack of papers, a final confirmation of receipt, a transfer of security protocols. Everything in order? She asked, her eyes searching mine. Everything, I said, picking up the pen, is perfectly clear. I signed my name. I was no longer the girl who had been kicked out. I was the woman who owned the fort. That night, I stood on the balcony, the same one I'd seen from the driveway. The pool lights cast a turquoise glow, and the ocean roared against the cliffs below. It was the most beautiful and most terrifying place I had ever been. I couldn't sleep. I wandered the dark, silent hallways. Every pane of glass felt like an eye. Every gust of wind sounded like a footstep. The house was too big, too empty. I thought of the black SUV. I thought of the text. They planned this. I thought of the teacup. I understood. Evelyn hadn't just given me a place to hide. She had given me a battlefield. This wasn't a home. It was a high ground, a beautifully furnished, fully staffed trench. To stay here, to survive what was coming, I didn't just need a good lawyer. I needed security, and I needed to know what was in that secret room. My first night in the house was spent in a leather armchair in the library. I didn't sleep. I watched the sophisticated, new, motion-activated security cameras that Marcus Hale had installed, viewing the feeds on my laptop. I watched the perimeter. I watched the gates. I watched the dark, silent waves crash against the rocks below. I was the lady of the manor. a prisoner in my own fortress. By morning, I had a plan. I was a risk analyst. The first step in analyzing risk is understanding your assets and your liabilities. My asset, this house, and the truth hidden inside it, my liability, my family, and the unknown puppeteer Evelyn had warned me about. I needed a team. Veronica had recommended Marcus Hale's firm, one that specialized in high-net-worth individuals with complex security situations. Marcus himself arrived at 8 a.m., looking like he had slept in his truck, which he probably had, parked just outside my gates. He was ex-Marine, quiet, and moved with an economy of motion that made me, a person who lived in spreadsheets, feel clumsy. He spent the morning installing the new system, cameras and blind spots, pressure sensors, a new encrypted wireless network, a panic button system with a direct line to his private team. "This is a fortress," he said, tapping on a tablet in the kitchen. He was testing the new smart locks. "Whoever built this was serious." "You noticed that too," I said, nursing my third coffee. "Oh, yeah." He zoomed in on a camera feed showing the main gate. The walls are reinforced. The glass on the main floor isn't just double-paned. It's laminated ballistic. The sightlines from the road are non-existent. The cliffs are the best defense in the world. This house wasn't designed for a party. Ms. Sullivan, it was designed to withstand a siege. My grandmother built it. I think she was expecting one. "Well, she got her money's worth," he finished typing. "You're set. The perimeter is active. Anything bigger than a coyote steps on this property. I'll know about it before they do." He was my shield. Now I needed control of the inside. The property management company had a rotating, anonymous cleaning staff. I couldn't have strangers walking through my new command center. I called the company and requested a single, dedicated housekeeper, citing privacy concerns. They sent Rosa Alvarez. She arrived an hour later, a woman in her 60s with her hair in a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. Her resume was a list of the most powerful and most private families in the state. She had been in service for 40 years. She walked into the kitchen, looked at the pristine, empty counters, and gave a small tisk. "This house has no life," she announced, her voice accented. "It is a museum. We will need flowers and good coffee. This," she said, tapping my cheap motel brand grounds, "is not acceptable." "You're hired," I said. Between Marcus on the outside and Rosa on the inside, I had the beginnings of a trusted circle. It was small. It was loyal only to the paycheck, for now, but it was a start. That afternoon, I brought Marcus to the library. Rosa was busy in the kitchen, loudly reorganizing the pantry and complaining about the lack of proper seasoning. "This is what I really need you to look at," I said. I pointed to the strange, shallow scratches on the bookshelf frame. "I thought it was just damage, but after reading my grandmother's letter, I think it's something else." Marcus didn't touch it. He crouched, pulling a small, high-intensity flashlight from his belt. He ran the beam over the carvings, his head tilted. "It's not damage," he said after a long silence. "And it's not decoration. It's a sequence." "A sequence?" "Look." He traced it with his finger, careful not to touch the wood. "Circle. 2 vertical lines. Small circle. Then you go over here." He moved to the next shelf. "And it's circle. 1 vertical line. Horizontal line. It's a path. It's directions." He followed the symbols, his eyes scanning the entire wall of books, moving from one carved frame to the next. He was like a tracker, following a trail I couldn't see. He spent 10 minutes in silence, moving from one side of the room to the other, before he finally stopped at a section of books on 19th century maritime law. "Here," he said, pointing to a small, carved wooden circle, no bigger than a quarter, set into the vertical divider between shelves. It was almost perfectly hidden by the shadows. "This one is different. It's inset." "What does that mean?" "It means you push it," he said, stepping back. "It's your house." I reached out, my fingers trembling slightly, and pressed my thumb into the center of the wooden circle. There was no click, No mechanical whir. Just a deep, heavy thud that I felt more in my feet than heard with my ears, like the sound of a heavy bolt sliding back deep inside the wall. Then, with a faint whisper of displaced air, the entire 7-foot-high section of bookshelf, books, shelves, and all, began to pivot inward. It moved on a silent, hydraulic mechanism, as smooth and heavy as a bank vault door. It opened onto a dark, narrow space. "Stay here," Marcus said, his voice dropping to a command. He unclipped his flashlight and stepped into the darkness first. I heard his footsteps, the beam of his light cutting through the dust. "Clear," he called back. "It's not a room. It's a vault." I stepped in after him. He was right. It was a 6x6 concrete-walled space, and the air was cold and still. Built into the back wall, dominating the small room, was a safe. It was a monster, an antique, black iron safe from the late 1800s, with ornate, hand-painted gold leaf on the hinges. On the center of the heavy door, surrounding a large, complex keyhole, was a series of symbols etched into the metal. They were the same circles and lines from the bookshelf. "My God," I whispered. She wasn't kidding. "No, ma'am," Marcus said, running his light over the door. "She was not. Can you open it? Can you drill it?" He shook his head, tapping the keyhole. "This is a pre-modern lock, high tolerance, probably custom-made. I could bring in a team. Drill the pins. Maybe even use a plasma cutter. But I wouldn't recommend it." "Why not?" "Because your grandmother set this all up. The house, the secret path, the hydraulic door. She didn't do all that just to be beaten by the first guy with a good drill. This isn't a safe for money. It's a safe for secrets. You use a hammer. You might destroy what's inside. Paper, photographs, whatever it is. She protected it this way for a reason. We do this by force. We lose." He was right. Evelyn played chess, not checkers. This was a lock, and she had hidden the key. I left the secret room open. The sight of it was a reminder. I went to the kitchen and called Veronica. "A secret room with an antique safe," she said, her voice dry. "Of course there is. That woman was more dramatic than a soap opera." "Do you have the key, Veronica?" "No, I have no idea where it is, but I can guess what's in there." Evelyn had what she called her Daniel file, a dossier. She told me it was mutually assured destruction, and she was the only one who knew the launch codes. She never let me see it. She said it was too dangerous. My guess is, that's it. So, I was stuck. I had a fortress with a locked box at its heart. That evening, the first counterattack came, not with a bang, but with a chime, an email. I was sitting in the library, staring at the dark maw of the vault. When my laptop chimed, the email was from the head of Human Resources at Northbridge Dynamics. The subject line, "Formal notification of suspension." My blood turned to ice. "Dear Ms. Sullivan, this email is to formally notify you that you have been placed on temporary, unpaid suspension, effective immediately. We have received serious and credible accusations of financial malfeasance, fraud, and undue influence related to a family estate." I read the words, but they wouldn't compute. Unpaid suspension, fraud, malfeasance. Allegations that you exploited an elderly relative for financial gain. Given the serious nature of these claims and the potential damage to Northbridge's reputation, we are launching a full internal investigation. Your access to all company systems has been revoked. They hadn't just kicked me out. They were trying to ruin me. At the bottom of the email was a link, provided by HR as background on the complaint. I clicked it. A local news website loaded. The headline, posted only an hour ago, screamed, "Grieving family alleges financial expert exploited ailing grandmother for millions." I scrolled. It was all there. A heartbroken Daniel Pierce, quoted extensively, worried about his vulnerable daughter who had fallen under undue influence, or worse, had masterminded a scheme to steal her grandmother's legacy. He claimed he was trying to protect me from myself. Riley was quoted as a concerned sister, saying she just wanted the Adeline we knew back They had painted me as a cold, predatory monster. They had painted themselves as the victims. They had gone to the press. They had gone to my job. My phone buzzed. A video call request. Daniel. A cold, pure rage, unlike anything I had ever felt, washed over me. I accepted the call. His face appeared, and it was a masterpiece. He looked haggard. His eyes were red. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, a father worried sick. "Adeline," he said, his voice cracking. He was actually crying. "Baby, I don't know why you're doing this. This isn't you, tearing this family apart." "You got me suspended," I said. My voice was flat, dead. The tears vanished. Instantly, the mask of the grieving father dissolved, and the face of the man who screamed, "Get out," was back. He leaned into the camera, his voice dropping to a low, vicious hiss. "You think you won. You think you're safe in that house. You have no idea what you've done. Do you? You don't know who you're messing with. You are in so far over your head." "Is that a threat, Dad?" "It's a fact," he spat. "You are interfering in things that have nothing to do with you. You give it back. You sign the papers, and you return what you stole. Or I swear to God, Adeline, I will drag you into the mud right along with me. You think a suspension is bad? You have no idea how far this goes." He hung up. I sat in the silence of the $20 million library. I was jobless. My name was toxic. My father had just threatened me, not as a father, but as a cornered accomplice. "You don't know who you're messing with." Evelyn's words came back. "Your father is a puppet. You need to find the puppeteer." He wasn't threatening me. He was warning me, relaying a threat from someone else. I looked at the black screen of my phone. I looked at the dark, open vault, and I looked at the antique safe, locked tight. My father and his puppeteer had just confirmed exactly what Evelyn had been protecting. More than 30 years of manipulation, debt, and fraud were sitting in that safe. And they were terrified I was about to find the key. I needed to dig, and I needed to dig faster than they could. I was suspended. I was a media pariah. I was a 33-year-old woman with a net worth of over $20 million, and I was, for all intents and purposes, unemployed and unemployable. The public smear campaign was a brilliant move. It cut me off from my professional network, my income, and my reputation. It isolated me. It was exactly what you do to a target before you move in for the kill. My father's threat, "You don't know who you're messing with," echoed in the cavernous library. He was right. I didn't. But I was a risk analyst, and my grandmother had just left me the mother of all data sets. I just needed someone who could read it. I called Veronica. "The Daniel file you mentioned? The one in the safe? I think my father and his friends just declared war to stop me from getting it. They're trying to ruin me. They got me suspended." There was a heavy silence on the line. "They went to your job?" Veronica's voice was sharp. "That's not desperate. That's scorched earth. That's a professional hit." "He said I was interfering." I said, "He's terrified, but he's also a puppet. I need to find the puppeteer. I need the key, Veronica, or I need someone who can get me what's in that safe. Another way." "Forget the safe for a minute," Veronica said. "If they're this aggressive, the truth isn't just in that box. It's in the paper trail. It's in the public record. If you know how to look, they've just given us our justification. They're slandering you. We dig back. I'm bringing in Claire." "Claire?" "Claire Monroe. She's a private investigator. Used to be a forensic accountant, then a detective in the Financial Crimes Division. Now, she specializes in high-net-worth family disputes and elder financial abuse. She's a shark, and she's the only person I know who found Evelyn's sense of humor delightfully morbid. She'll be there in an hour." Claire Monroe was not what I expected. She was younger than me, dressed in jeans and a worn leather jacket, with her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked more like a grad student than a shark. Then she spoke. "So," she said, walking into the library and eyeing the open vault with professional disinterest, "this is the $20 million war room, and you're the pariah." Your father moves fast. So I've heard, I said. Veronica gave me the rundown: suspension, media smear, family ambush, standard isolate and discredit playbook. She dropped a heavy backpack onto the expensive rug and pulled out a laptop. Here's what I need. I need full access. Full access to what? Everything. She started ticking off fingers. Your tax returns for the last 15 years, every bank account, open or closed, every credit card, your old college email account, your current email, your Northbridge employment contract. I also need every piece of paper you have related to Daniel, Riley, Lydia, and your mother, Monica, bills, old letters, birthday cards, anything that creates a timeline. I don't have most of that here. You have your phone and your laptop. You have online access. We will spend the next 4 hours getting me that access. I'm not interested in your father's threats. I'm interested in his bank statements. For the next 3 days, the library became a true war room. Claire was relentless. She set up a large whiteboard, drawing lines and boxes, connecting names to dates, accounts to shell companies. She was quiet, fueled by a terrifying amount of coffee that Rosa kept supplying, her fingers flying across her keyboard. I sat with her, pulling up old 401k statements, digging through archived emails, reliving my entire financial life. On the third day, she leaned back. Okay, the picture is getting clear, and it's ugly. She stood and walked to the whiteboard. Let's start with you. You've been the family ATM, right? Sending money home since college? Yes, thousands, tens of thousands over the years. Claire shook her head. That's not the half of it. You weren't just the ATM. Adeline, you were the co-signer. Whether you knew it or not, she taped a printout to the board, a credit card application, from 12 years ago. You recognize the address? Your college dorm. I never had this card, I said. No, but your father did. He opened it in your name. He did the same thing with 2 small personal loans, totaling about $25,000. He tanked your credit score before you even graduated. You've been bad with money your whole adult life, right? Struggled to get that first apartment? Took you years to save up a down payment? I just thought I was disorganized. That I wasn't trying hard enough. You weren't disorganized, Claire said, her voice cutting. You were a victim of identity theft. Your own father was using you as a shield. My God, I felt sick. But here's the interesting part. She taped up another document. Someone cleaned it up. 10 years ago, someone hired a forensic accounting team, paid off the ghost debt in one lump sum, and had the black marks legally expunged from your credit report. And she did it without you ever knowing. Evelyn, I whispered. She knew, even back then. She knew. She's been playing a long game. Adeline, she was patching the holes in your boat while your father was drilling them. She let that sink in for a moment, then moved to a new section of the whiteboard. This one was labeled Riley. Now, let's talk about the golden child. The podcast starting, influencer collabing, blessed little sister who smirked at you. What about her? She got everything. I paid for it, but she got it. Oh, she got it. All right, Claire said, her voice dark. She taped up another document. It was a mortgage application for a condo in the city. This is from when she was 18, a $300,000 loan, co-signed by Daniel. She taped up another, and another, loans, lines of credit, a mortgage on a small rental property. Claire, this is millions of dollars. Riley's podcast doesn't make that. Riley's podcast doesn't make anything, Claire said. The money from these loans didn't go to Riley. Look at the transfer logs. It went from the bank into an account in her name, and then, 24 hours later, it was transferred out. She drew a thick black line from Riley's name to a new box. It went here, to Daniel's investment accounts, or more accurately, to this list of shell corporations. She pointed to a name that kept appearing. And every one of these corporations is managed by one man, Grant Holloway. I just stared. Riley isn't the golden child, Claire stated, turning to face me. She's the financial scapegoat. She's the mule. Daniel destroyed his own credit years ago. He used yours until Evelyn cut him off. So he went to the next best thing. His underage, compliant, worshipful daughter. He has buried her in debt. He's used her identity as a living financial shield. She's not just spoiled, Adeline, she's a hostage. She just doesn't know it. My legs felt weak. I sat down in one of the leather chairs. All those years, all that resentment, the jealousy, the anger I felt every time Riley posted a picture of a new car, a new trip, a new project funded by my money, and the whole time, she was just another one of his assets, a different kind of ATM. I paid in, and she paid out. She hates me, I stammered. At the dinner, she was happy. Of course she was, Claire said, not unkindly. To her. You're the ungrateful, unloving sister who abandoned the family. She's been told her whole life that her talents are what keep the family afloat, and you're the cold-hearted analyst who just doesn't get it. She's the star of a play, and she has no idea the theater is on fire. As if on cue, the TV in the corner, which I'd left on mute on a news channel, flickered. My father's face filled the screen. It was a morning show. He and Lydia were sitting on a plush sofa, holding hands. Lydia was dabbing her eyes with a tissue. The chyron at the bottom read, "Family betrayal? Father speaks out about predatory daughter." At the same time, my phone buzzed. A link from a friend. Riley's new Instagram story. It was a picture of her and Daniel from years ago. Her as a little girl on his shoulders. The caption, "Family is everything. We protect each other. I'll always be on your side. Dad, it's sad when some people forget what's important for money." Family first betrayal. I felt a wave of nausea. She was defending him, publicly. She was digging her own grave, and he was handing her the shovel. "I need to find the puppeteer," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I already found him," Claire said. She tapped her laptop. "I've been digging into Daniel's cloud storage. He's sloppy. He has a deleted email folder he never bothered to empty. This is the real prize." She turned her screen. It was an email chain. From 3 months ago, right after Evelyn's death. The recipients, Daniel, Pierce@gmail.com, and G. Holloway at HarborCapitalGroup.com. The subject, Evelyn's estate, complications. I read it. It was Daniel, in a full-blown, text-shouting panic. "The will is locked. She cut me out. She cut Riley out. She gave it all to Adeline. This is a disaster. What do we do?" And then, the reply, from Grant Holloway. His tone was calm, reassuring, predatory. "Daniel, stop panicking. This is a simple cash flow problem, not a catastrophe. The will is a document. Documents can be superseded. The asset isn't the money. It's Adeline." "What? What does that mean?" I said. "It means this," Claire said, scrolling down. "Here's his plan. The whole thing. The family dinner. The reconciliation. The simple papers. It's all here. He wrote the script for your father." I read Grant's words. "You will stage a family reunion. You will present her with the documents we prepared. She will sign, to help the family. She is primed, after 20 years of service, to do so. It is her default setting. And then, in the event she refuses, you will proceed to stage 2, discredit and isolate. We will leak the story to the press. We will contact her employer. We will paint her as an unstable, greedy, manipulative daughter. We will make her toxic. A federal judge will be far more likely to grant conservatorship to a concerned father over an unstable daughter. You will get control. Daniel, you just need to follow the plan." I stood up. I walked to the glass wall overlooking the ocean. I could see my own reflection. Pale, terrified, and furious. This man, this Grant Holloway, a man I had never met, never even heard of. He had analyzed me. He had profiled me. He had written a risk assessment on my entire personality, and he had been right. "My father is an idiot," I said. "He's a desperate, selfish, emotional child. This man, this Grant, he's the one, Claire agreed, closing her laptop. Daniel is a liability. Grant Holloway is the threat. He's the one who's been pulling the strings on your entire family, probably for decades, and he's the one we have to take down. Grant Holloway, the puppeteer. The name echoed in my mind, a focal point for the anger, confusion, and fear. Daniel was a failed, pathetic man, but Grant was a name with a corporation attached. He was the one who had written the script. He was the one who saw me as an asset. And I knew, with a sudden sinking certainty, who held the final piece. The M on the text message, my mother, Monica, she was the one who had sat at that table in silence, invited to a reconciliation that was always meant to be an execution. She was the one who had watched me be exiled and then sent a single, cowardly text. She was my father's first wife. She had been there when the rot began. I left Claire in the library, a fortress of data, and drove my car out of the iron gates of Coronado Cove. I left the $20 million view behind and drove inland, back to the world of strip malls and two-bedroom apartments. My mother lived in a small, tidy unit in a complex called Cypress Gardens, which had no cypress trees and no garden, just beige stucco and gravel landscaping. It was the home of a woman who worked two jobs, one as a dental hygienist and one on weekends at a retail store. A woman who paid her bills, kept to herself, and was perpetually tired. I had always pitied her, just a little. Today, I wasn't sure what I felt. I knocked. She opened it, and her face, already etched with exhaustion, crumpled. Adeline, oh God, I saw the news. I didn't know he would. You knew he was planning something, I said, my voice flat. I didn't move to hug her. I didn't step inside. You texted me. They planned this. You said, who is they, Mom? Daniel. And Lydia. She was wringing her hands, her eyes darting to the empty hallway behind me, as if worried I'd brought the press. Let me in. Mom, we need to talk. I stepped inside. The apartment was immaculate, small, and smelled faintly of lemon polish and old coffee. It was the complete opposite of my father's performative wealth and my own new, terrifying luxury. This was just a life, small and contained. I didn't sit. I pulled a folded paper from my jacket pocket. It was one of the documents Claire had found, buried deep in Evelyn's financial archives. A limited power of attorney, signed 15 years ago, giving Daniel Pierce access to one of Evelyn Hart's investment accounts. It was co-signed, as a witness, by Monica Pierce. I placed it on her small, neat coffee table. Claire, my investigator, found this. It's the first time he did it, the first time he borrowed from Grandma, and you helped him. She didn't look at the paper. She looked at me, and her eyes filled with the tears I'd been waiting for my entire life. She collapsed onto her beige sofa, her hands covering her face. It wasn't a performance. It was a complete and total shattering. He said, she choked. He said he'd take you. I waited. After the divorce, she whispered, her voice muffled by her hands. I was a mess. He was so charming, so plausible. He told everyone I was the unstable one. He threatened to go to the court, to tell them I was unfit, that I drank. He said he would take you from me, Adeline, and he would ruin my name so completely I couldn't even get a job as a waitress. And you believed him, I said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement. You don't understand, she said, looking up, her face desperate. You don't know what he was like. He could make anyone believe anything. He could twist the truth until you didn't know which way was up. I was terrified, so I signed. I let him take the money from Evelyn, just a little at first, to keep the peace, and then it never stopped. My silence was the first thing he bought. I sat down in the chair opposite her. The anger was gone, replaced by a hollow ache. She wasn't an accomplice. She was the first victim. The dinner, I said. You knew. I knew it was a trap, she admitted, her voice trembling. I didn't know how bad. Daniel. He's been different, these last few months. Since Evelyn died, desperate, terrified. He's terrified of a man named Grant, I said. Grant Holloway. Monica's head snapped up. Her eyes were wide with a new, old fear. Where did you hear that name? She breathed. Who is he? Mom? I don't know. He was just a voice, a name, Daniel's dark cloud. She was looking past me, into her own memory. After the divorce, late at night, Daniel would be on the phone, yelling. He'd call this Grant a shadow bank, a garbage man. He said he was a terrifying benefactor, and once I heard Daniel throw the phone across the room. It shattered. He was sobbing. He screamed, "If it wasn't for you and Riley, I'd have been gone long ago." He was terrified of him. I always thought Grant was just a loan shark. He's the man who's been pulling my father's strings for 20 years, I said. He's the one who's trying to destroy me. And I think he's the reason Evelyn built that fortress for me. Monica stared at me, her face, which had been a mask of fear, suddenly firmed. A decision was made. Wait here, she said. She got up and went to her bedroom. I heard a drawer scrape, the jingle of a jewelry box. She came back out holding two things. The first was a thick, cream-colored envelope, identical to the one Veronica had given me. My name was on it, in Evelyn's hand. The second was a key. It was old, brass, and intricate. Evelyn sent me this, she said, her hands shaking as she held them out. 6 months ago, before she died, she said, "Monica, you are a coward, but you love your daughter. One day, Daniel will revert to his true nature. He will try to burn the world down to save himself. When he does, give this to Adeline. It's the only apology that will matter." Monica pushed them into my hands. I'm a coward. Adeline, I was then. I was at that dinner, but I'm not going to be one today. I opened the letter. My dearest Addie, if you are reading this, your mother has finally found her spine. I am proud of her, and I am proud of you. You have found the safe. You have found the fortress, but you do not have the key. Now you do. Your mother was right to be afraid. Daniel is a puppet, but Grant Holloway is a monster. And the truth in that safe, it is more than just embezzlement. It is more than just Daniel's financial crimes, of which there are many. All of that is in there. Proof of every dollar he stole, but the real leverage, the real secret, is Riley. Grant Holloway has Daniel in a cage, and Riley is the lock. The papers in that safe will tell you the truth about her, the truth of her birth. Be strong, my girl, and when you open it, call Veronica. This is not a battle you can fight alone. This is the truth that will set you all free, or get you all killed. Act wisely. Evelyn. The truth about Riley, the truth of her birth. I looked at my mother. What does she mean? What about Riley? Monica sat down, her face pale. I don't know, she whispered. I've always wondered, but I was too afraid to ask. Wondered what? After we divorced, Daniel met Lydia so fast, and then Riley, the timing was strange, and there were things. Daniel was suddenly so flush with cash. After being in debt, I remember seeing him with Grant Holloway. Just once, at a restaurant. They were celebrating, not long after. Lydia was pregnant. Daniel paid for everything in cash. I thought she was his fresh start. But Evelyn saw everything. I think I knew, deep down, that Riley wasn't just his. I drove back to Coronado Cove, the brass key heavy in my hand, my mind numb. Riley is the lock. Marcus was at the gate when I arrived. You look like you've seen a ghost, he said. I think I just talked to one, I said, holding up the key. It's time. I didn't wait. I walked straight to the library, to the open vault, to the massive black iron safe. The symbols on the key were a perfect match for the etching on the lock. I put the key in. It turned, smoothly, silently, as if it had been oiled yesterday. There was a heavy thunk of tumblers falling into place. I pulled. The door was heavy, but it swung open with a perfectly balanced groan. There was no gold, no jewels, just paper. It was a banker's box, and on top of it, a stack of photographs and a file. I pulled it all out onto the library floor. Claire, who had heard the sound, came to the doorway and just watched, her face grim. I opened the file. It was a private investigator's report, dated 15 years ago, commissioned by Evelyn Hart. The subject, Grant Holloway and Daniel Pierce. I read, it was all there, a meticulous, horrifying timeline. Daniel's spiraling debts, his first meeting with Grant, a high-risk financier, the forged documents, the identity theft, and then the deal. Grant Holloway, it turned out, had a problem. An illegitimate child with a young woman who was threatening to go public. Grant, a married man with a reputation to protect, couldn't have that. He needed the problem to disappear, and Daniel Pierce, a man buried in debt, was the perfect solution. I looked in the box. I pulled out the document at the bottom. It was a birth certificate, an original birth certificate. Name, Riley Holloway. Mother, redacted. Father, Grant Holloway. The report laid it all out. Grant made Daniel a deal. Grant would wipe Daniel's slate clean. He would give him a credit line, an in to his world of dark money and shell companies. In exchange, Daniel and his new, compliant wife Lydia would adopt Grant's illegitimate daughter. They would raise her as their own. She would be given their name, and Daniel would never be out of Grant's debt. Evelyn had known. She had known for 15 years. She had hired a POI. She found the truth, and then she did nothing. She sat on it. She watched. She protected Riley from the scandal. She quietly, surgically extracted me, her own blood, from the blast radius. She built her fortress and wrote her will, an iron-toothed trap, and waited. I sat on the floor of my $20 million library. The air was cold from the open vault. Riley, my embittered rival, the golden child, the girl who had smirked as I was exiled. She wasn't my half-sister. She wasn't my father's daughter. She was the living, breathing, podcasting proof of my father's original sin. She wasn't just a hostage. She was the ransom, a living debt, walking and talking, and completely unaware of what she was. And she was the daughter of the man who was now trying to destroy my life. I was sitting on the floor of my library, the original birth certificate heavy in my hand. Riley Holloway. The name felt like a toxin, a key to a history I had never understood. She wasn't my half-sister. She wasn't Daniel's golden child. She was Grant's. She was the collateral. Claire stood in the doorway, silent, giving me space to process the impossible. Marcus was just outside, a quiet sentinel. The three of us were suspended in the cold, quiet air of the vault, the weight of Evelyn's final secret pressing down on us. My phone, sitting on the rug beside the pile of documents, suddenly vibrated. The sound was violent, obscene in the tomb-like silence. I looked at the screen. The name made my blood freeze. Riley. She had never, in my entire life, called me. Not once. Text messages, yes. Snide, demanding, sarcastic, but never a call. I looked up at Claire, my heart hammering. It's her. Claire's eyes narrowed. This is it. Stage 3. The script Grant wrote. Don't answer. No, I said. This isn't in his script. He wouldn't use her. She's too unstable. She's the perfect leverage, Claire countered. Answer it, Marcus said from the hall. Put it on speaker. I pressed the green button, my hand shaking, and set the phone on the floor between us. Hello? My voice was dry. Adeline? It wasn't Riley's voice, not the one I knew. This was a sound I had never heard before. It was a high, thin whisper, suffocated by terror and static. Adeline, oh my God, are you there? Please. Riley, what is this? Is this some new part of the show? No, God, no, please, shut up, just listen, she sobbed. a raw panic in her voice that was impossible to fake. "I don't have time. I'm in the basement. Dad locked me in the basement." Claire and I locked eyes. This was not a script. "What? Why? Riley? What's going on?" "He found me," she whispered, her words tumbling over each other. "He found me looking at his laptop. He and Lydia, they had a fight, and he got so angry. He went crazy. Adeline, he grabbed me and he locked me in. He said I was a liability." I could barely breathe. "Where is he?" "He's upstairs, in the study. But that's not why I'm calling. Adeline, there's a man here. I've never seen him before. A man in a suit. I can hear them. I'm right under the study. I can hear them through the vent." "A strange man?" I said, though I knew. "Grant?" "Yes, that's it. Dad just called him Grant. How do you— It doesn't matter. Adeline, you have to listen to me. They're talking about you, and they're planning to kill you." The air evacuated my lungs. Claire dropped to her knees, her ear now inches from the phone's speaker. "Riley, slow down," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Tell me exactly what you heard." "They're angry," she cried, the static getting worse as she moved the phone. "The man, Grant, he's furious. He said the smear campaign isn't working fast enough. He said you're dug in at that fortress on the cliff and that you're a complication that needs to be permanently retired." His words. Permanently retired. She took a ragged, desperate breath. "They're going to make it look like an accident. Grant. He said the coastal highway was serpentine and prone to tragedy. He said maybe you just slip from the cliff edge at your own house. They're going to— Oh God. Adeline. They're going to say you were depressed, that the fraud allegations and the family fight, that you were unstable and greedy. They're building a story, a narrative. So when you're gone, everyone just nods. They're going to murder you." "Riley, stay calm," I said, my own heart threatening to burst. "Where are they now?" "Still upstairs, still talking. Adeline." Her voice broke, turning into a full, desperate sob. I'm so stupid. I was happy when he kicked you out." The confession hit me harder than the threat. "What?" She choked. "I was happy. I hated you. I hated that you were so separate, so much better than us. I thought if you were gone, he would finally just be my dad, that I would be enough. I thought he was protecting me, protecting us, from you." She was wailing now, a thin, hopeless sound. "But he's not. He's a monster. He looked at me, and I saw it. He locked his own daughter in a basement. I'm not the golden child. I'm just the other pawn. I see that now. We're both just his pawns." The bitter, terrible irony of her words, his own daughter, sat in my throat like acid. She didn't even know. She wasn't a pawn. She was the entire chessboard. "Riley," I said, my voice hardening, "listen to me. Can you get out of there?" I think so. The lock is old. The hinges are rusted. But Adeline, I have it. That's why he locked me in. I took it." "Took what?" "His laptop. The one he never, ever lets anyone touch. I was curious. After the dinner, he was acting so strange. I found a folder. It's just labeled Grant H. And there's a USB drive, a black one. It's always plugged into the side. I took the whole bag. I have it. I have it right now." Claire's head snapped up. Her eyes were no longer analytical. They were hungry. "Riley," I said. "That is, if I get out of here," she cut me off, her voice suddenly frantic. "I'll bring it to you. I'll bring you everything. And if he comes back." A muffled, heavy shout echoed from her end of the line, a door slamming. "Riley!" It was Daniel's voice. He's coming, she gasped. He knows I'm on the phone. The line went dead. Riley! I yelled at the phone. I hit redial. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. Damn it! Claire was already on her own laptop, her fingers flying. I'm pinging her cell. The call was short, but it routed through a carrier tower. The signal is, it's strong. She's telling the truth. The phone is at Daniel's address, right now. I was on my feet, grabbing my keys from the bowl by the door. I'm going. Adeline, no! Claire yelled. Marcus was suddenly in front of me, his body a wall. Stop. Get out of my way. Marcus, she has the proof. He's going to kill her. Or, Marcus said, his voice a low, calm rumble that cut through my panic. They're going to use her to kill you. I froze. What are you talking about? Think, he said, his eyes locked on mine. Use your head. You're an analyst. What is this? It's a perfect trap. The damsel in distress. The tearful, panicked phone call. I have the secret files MacGuffin. It's everything you need to hear to make you emotional, to make you stupid, to make you leave the fortress. I felt sick. He was right. Grant just told Daniel to kill you. Marcus continued, his voice relentless. What's the easiest way? Lure you out, get you on the road. Frantic, you race to Daddy's house, and a black SUV, maybe the same one from the other night, T-bones you at an intersection. Or you run into the house, and Grant is waiting for you in the study with a gun. Riley is the bait. Her terror might be real, but the situation is a setup. So what do? I screamed. What's the alternative? We let him kill her? No, Marcus said. We don't go in blind. We don't go in hot. We control the engagement. He pulled out his own phone. Claire, what's the address? She rattled it off. Marcus dialed. I'm calling the local precinct. Anonymous tip. Reporting a domestic disturbance in progress. Possible unlawful imprisonment. A welfare check. That puts a patrol car in the neighborhood. It gives them an audience. Grant and Daniel won't make a move, on her or on us, if there are cops parked on the lawn. He made the call. It was 30 seconds of cold. Professional facts. A patrol car is en route. ETA 10 minutes. He hung up and grabbed his keys. Now, we go. But we do it my way. We're taking my truck. I drive. Claire, you're in the back, and you keep that phone's location on your screen. We don't go to the house. We go near the house. We park at the end of the street. We get eyes on. We watch. The 20-minute drive was a silent agony. I was in the passenger seat of Marcus's heavy-duty truck. My hands clenched so tightly my nails were biting into my palms. Every red light was a personal insult. Phone is still at the house, Claire reported from the back seat, her laptop glowing. No movement. Marcus killed his headlights 2 blocks away. He parked at the end of the cul-de-sac, in the deep shadow of an oak tree, 200 yards from the house I grew up in. It was dark, except for a single light on the second floor. The study. No patrol car yet, Marcus murmured, his eyes scanning every shadow. This is a quiet street. They'll be here soon. Wait, I whispered, leaning forward. Look, the side gate. The back. A shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness by the garage. It was small. It was fast. It was Riley. She was clutching a black laptop bag to her chest. She wasn't running to the street. She was running to the battered blue sedan in the driveway. Her car. She's out, I breathed. A wave of relief so powerful it made me dizzy. A car door slammed, the sound echoing in the quiet night. The engine protested, then screeched to life. Where is he? Marcus said, his voice tight. Where's the welcome party? We saw no one. No Daniel. No Grant. No black SUV. Riley's car flew in reverse down the driveway, swerved onto the street, her tires screaming, and tore past us, heading away from the city, away from me. She's not coming to us, Claire said. Follow her, I said. Marcus, follow her, now. He was already in gear. He waited for her to turn the corner. then accelerated smoothly, his lights still off, a shadow chasing a shadow. We followed her for 15 miles. She wasn't driving to the city. She wasn't driving to me. She was heading for the coast, but to the old, undeveloped stretch of highway north of Coronado Cove. She knows this road, I whispered, recognizing the abandoned turnoffs. We used to explore here, before Lydia. She suddenly braked, yanking her car off the highway onto an old, bumpy dirt track that led into a grove of trees. She stopped in front of a dilapidated, boarded-up structure, a long-forgotten beach cabin. A safe house, Claire said from the back, or what she thinks is one. Marcus pulled the truck onto the track behind her, stopping, and flipped his high beams on. Riley was frozen in the glare, a terrified animal, shielding her eyes. I was out of the truck before it stopped moving. Riley, it's me. It's Adeline. We're here. She just crumpled. She slid down the side of her car, her legs giving out, and dropped to the ground in the dirt. The laptop bag clutched to her like a shield. I ran to her, my feet sinking in the sand and weeds. Marcus and Claire were right behind me, fanning out, their eyes scanning the dark trees. You came, she sobbed, looking up at me. She was shaking so violently her teeth were chattering. You followed me. I'm here, I said, kneeling in front of her. Are you hurt? She shook her head, shoving the laptop bag at me. She pushed it into my chest with frantic energy. Take it. Just take it. It's all in there. The laptop, the USB, everything. I heard them. Grant, he was yelling at Dad. He said Dad was an emotional mess and that he was taking care of it personally now. She grabbed the front of my jacket, her knuckles white. Adeline, I've been on his side. My whole life. I posted that picture. I chose him. I've chosen him every single day. And he locked me in the basement. I know, Riley. I know. It's okay. No, she said, shaking her head, her eyes wild in the headlights. You don't. But I'm choosing you now. I'm choosing this, whatever this is. I'm not his daughter anymore. The terrible, tragic irony of that sentence hung in the cold, salt air between us. She had no idea how true it was. Take it, she begged, pushing the bag again. Take it and run. They're not just going to threaten you. They're going to kill you, and they're going to kill me for doing this. I took the bag. It was heavy, heavy with secrets, and heavy with the price she had just paid to steal them. We didn't go back to Coronado Cove. Not right away. Marcus drove us, with Riley huddled in the back seat under a blanket, to a secure, windowless office that Claire Monroe kept in a nondescript building downtown. It was 4 a.m. This is an evidence room, Claire announced, locking the heavy steel door behind us. Riley, you're safe. No one knows this address. You're now a material witness. You do not call anyone. You do not post anything. Your old life, as of tonight, is over. Riley, who was still trembling, just nodded, her eyes wide with a combination of terror and a strange, dazed relief. Veronica arrived at dawn, looking like she hadn't slept either. She took one look at Riley, then at the heavy laptop bag on the table. My God, Riley, Veronica said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. You have no idea what you've done, do you? I think I do, Riley whispered. I think I just blew up my father's life. Veronica and Claire shared a look. Honey, Veronica said, your father's life was a ticking time bomb. You just handed us the blast shield. For the next 8 hours, Claire and Veronica became a 2-woman surgical team. They plugged the laptop and the USB drive into a closed-system forensic workstation, a setup designed to copy, analyze, and catalog data without ever touching the internet, preventing any kind of remote wipe. It was, as Claire put it, the whole damn kingdom. It's not just a folder. Adeline, Claire said, her eyes glowing as she scrolled through a spreadsheet. It's his entire shadow ledger, We're not just looking at Daniel's debt. We're looking at Grant Holloway's entire operation. The laptop and the USB were a digital archive of a 20-year criminal conspiracy. There were spreadsheets meticulously tracking money movements through a web of shell corporations in the Caymans, Panama, and Delaware. There were email chains, hundreds of them, between Daniel and Grant, discussing investment strategies, capital calls, and risk mitigation, all of it thinly veiled code for money laundering, fraud, and extortion. Daniel wasn't just Grant's puppet, he was his bookkeeper. Then, in a folder marked Contingencies, Claire found it. "Son of a," she breathed, pulling up a document. "He wasn't just going to discredit you. He had a backup plan to steal the inheritance outright. It was a loan agreement, a beautifully, perfectly forged contract. It proved that I, Adeline Sullivan, had borrowed $250,000 from a shell corporation, one of Grant's, of course. The signature was a perfect digital copy of my own." "But that's not the kicker," Veronica said, reading over her shoulder, her face white with rage. "It's this clause, right here," she pointed, the fine print. The clause stipulated that if I defaulted on this loan, the lender had the right to seize as collateral any and all future inheritance, bequests, or financial gifts designated to me. "He had this," I whispered, feeling sick. "The whole time, if I'd signed his papers at dinner, I'd be fine. Since I refused, he was going to produce this. He was going to sue my grandmother's estate, claim he was the wronged party, and seize the inheritance for himself." "This," Claire said, saving the file to 3 different hard drives, "is not a family dispute. This is not a civil case. This is federal." She looked at Veronica. "This isn't for us. This is for the FBI. This is wire fraud, mail fraud, money laundering, identity theft, and conspiracy. Grant Holloway isn't a financier. He's an organized crime syndicate of one." Veronica nodded, her face grim. "I'll make the call. I know someone at the regional office, a man I trust." She arranged a proffer session, an off-the-books meeting at a secure FBI facility. They wanted to keep it small, just me, Veronica, and Claire. Riley was moved by Marcus to a second, even more secure safe house, a witness too valuable and too volatile to expose. I spent 6 hours in a gray windowless room with 2 agents. The one in charge, Agent Ruiz, was a compact man who looked like he'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. I walked them through the timeline. I started with my childhood. The 20 years of being an ATM. I moved to the dinner. Get Out, the shattered glass, the black SUV, the 2 a.m. phone call from Veronica, the $20 million house, the secret safe, the smear campaign, the suspension, Riley's phone call from the basement, the laptop. I laid out Evelyn's private investigator reports, the original birth certificate, and finally, the forged $250,000 loan. Ruiz just listened. He didn't take notes. He just watched me. When I was finished, I was exhausted. I laid the black USB drive, the Grant H key, on the metal table between us. "This," I said, "is everything, my sister, Riley. She nearly died to get this. Now, what are you going to do about it?" Ruiz didn't look at the drive. He looked at me. Then, for the first time, he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was a hungry one. "Ms. Sullivan," he said, "do you know how long I've been trying to get a hook into Grant Holloway?" You know him?" "Oh, we know him. He's on a list, a long, annoying list of too-smart-to-touch white-collar predators. He's been a ghost, a legend. We knew he was dirty. We could smell it, but he never, ever leaves a paper trail. He's too insulated. He uses cutouts, puppets, and fools, men like your father." He finally picked up the USB drive, holding it between 2 fingers like it was a jewel. "And you, Ms. Sullivan, just handed me his entire playbook. You didn't just bring us a hook. You brought us the whole damn shark." The FBI machine roared to life. They didn't just copy the data, they ingested it. A team of 20 agents was assigned to the new Holloway Task Force. They began the process of building an ironclad, unassailable case, but Ruiz was clear. This takes time, weeks, maybe months. We have to follow the money, get subpoenas, trace the offshore accounts, and in that time, you are in more danger than you have ever been. He's a contingency planner, I said. Exactly, Ruiz agreed. His stage 2, the smear campaign, failed to stop you. His stage 3, using your sister, failed. He is now at stage 4, and he's not a man who gives up. He's a cornered animal, and cornered animals, they're not predictable. You go back to your fortress. You let Mr. Hale do his job. You do not go anywhere alone. The next week was a special kind of hell. While the FBI built their case in secret, my public execution continued. The smear campaign escalated. Daniel, now clearly taking direct, desperate orders from Grant, was on every talk show that would have him, crying his crocodile tears. Lydia was beside him, the perfect, supportive, grieving wife. Adeline was unstable. Adeline had a history of impulsive, erratic behavior. Adeline was being manipulated by a predatory law firm. My name was mud. My professional life was over. And the worst part? I couldn't say a word. You are a material witness in an active federal investigation, Veronica told me over the phone, her voice firm as I raged about a new article. You go public. You compromise the case. You smear it. Grant's lawyers will call it a personal vendetta. You have to stay silent. You have to let them win. For now. I can't just let them call me a criminal, I seethed. You're a whistleblower. And we need to start acting like it. The next day, she hired Miles Vega. He was a PR strategist, a narrative specialist, who handled high-stakes, high-profile litigation. Right now, Miles said, pacing my living room. You're the crazy, greedy daughter. That's a bad brand. We need to rebrand. Starting today. You are the financial whistleblower. You are the woman who uncovered a generational fraud. You are not avenging your family. You are protecting your grandmother's legacy from a criminal enterprise that your father got tangled in. But I can't talk to the press, I said. You don't have to, Miles said, smiling. We're going to leak a few things. A few friends of the family are going to start talking. We're not going to fight his story. We're going to tell a better one and a truer one. But Grant was faster. Before Miles could even launch his counteroffensive, Grant changed the game. I got an email. It wasn't from a lawyer. It wasn't from a shell corporation. It was from him. G. Holloway at Harbor Capital Group. Com. The subject? A private conversation. The email was polite, civil, almost warm. Dear Adeline, I feel we have gotten off on the wrong foot. This entire situation, stemming from your grandmother's unfortunate passing, has been chaotic. Your father is an emotional man. He does not always act rationally. I believe you and I are both rational, practical people. We are professionals. I would like to propose a meeting, just the two of us, to resolve this family misunderstanding, quietly and amicably. There is a path forward where everyone's interests are protected. Let's find it. Grant. I stared at the screen. My blood was ice. He's reaching out, I yelled. Claire, Marcus, and I were in the library. I forwarded it to Claire. She read it, and a slow, cold smile spread across her face. He's feeling it, she said. The FBI is already sniffing around his accounts. The subpoenas are landing. He's in the dark, and he's spooked. He thinks his puppet, Daniel, has failed. So the puppeteer is stepping in to handle you personally. This is his last move, Marcus said. He's going to try to buy you, or he's going to try to threaten you. Or, I said, he's going to try to kill me. No, Claire said. Not in a public meeting. He's too smart for that. This is a gift. I called Agent Ruiz. I read him the email. There was a long silence. Well, Ruiz said, a sudden, bright energy in his voice. Mr. Holloway wants to play. It's his lucky day. What does that mean? It means, Ms. Sullivan, we have our sting. We're not just going to get him on paper. We're going to get him on tape. The FBI took over. The legal heist just became a full-blown operation. The meeting would be on our terms, but his choice of venue, he suggested the lobby cafe of a 5-star hotel downtown. Perfect, Ruiz said. Public, cameras, multiple entrances. The plan was simple. I would go, I would wear a wire, I would be backed by a dozen undercover agents, FBI agents disguised as businessmen, waitstaff, bellhops. Marcus and Claire would be there too, at a nearby table, acting as my personal security, a visible deterrent. He's not just coming to talk, Ruiz explained, briefing us in the war room. He's coming to transact. He's going to offer you a deal, and he's going to want to know what you have. The laptop, I said. Exactly, but you're not going to give it to him. You, he said, handing me a fresh, black USB drive, are going to give him this. It was a clone. This drive is a gift, the FBI tech guy explained. It's got a copy of some of the real data, enough to look convincing. But the moment he plugs it into his laptop, a geolocator pings our server, a keylogger activates, and a program copies his entire hard drive and sends it to us in real time. It's a Trojan horse, and he's inviting it right into his house. So I go, I said, trying to steady my nerves. I sit down, I take the deal, and I hand him this bait drive. You go, Ruiz said, his face hard. You sit, you listen. You are a grieving, frightened, but practical woman who is in over her head and is looking for an amicable way out. You let him talk. You let him offer you the bribe. You let him make the threat. You let him dig his own grave. He looked at me. You're the analyst, Ms. Sullivan. Go analyze. I arrived 15 minutes early. The hotel lobby was a cathedral of quiet wealth. Marble floors muffled the sound of footsteps. A distant piano trio was playing something classical and forgettable, and the air smelled of lemon polish and money. It was the perfect civilized place to conduct an assassination. I chose the table we had planned, a deep, upholstered booth in the far corner. It gave me a view of the entire lobby, the bar, and the main entrance. My back was, literally, to the wall. I ordered a sparkling water. The wire taped to my chest was cold, a solid, illegal-feeling rectangle against my skin. I was a walking, talking, federal surveillance operation. I didn't have to look for Marcus. I already knew where he was. He sat at a small, 2-person table near the bar, looking every bit the high-end executive protection agent, his suit sharp, his gaze casual but sweeping. He was reading a newspaper. I knew he was wearing an earpiece, listening to the live feed from my wire, and communicating with the FBI command post in a suite on the 4th floor. Claire was up there with him, monitoring the hotel's security feeds. Agent Ruiz's team was invisible. The businessman at the bar nursing a club soda, the young couple by the window, pretending to argue over a map, the bellhop adjusting the luggage cart. The entire lobby was a stage, and every person on it, except one, was part of the play. He arrived at 10 o'clock, exactly. Grant Holloway moved like a shark in a $1,000 suit. He was in his late 50s, with a full head of silver hair, an expensive tan, and the kind of patrician good looks that exuded confidence. He didn't look like a criminal. He looked like a man who endowed universities. He smelled faintly of a light, citrus cologne. His smile, when he spotted me, was warm. It was a mentor's smile. It was the smile of a man who could not possibly be a threat. He glided over, hand outstretched. Adeline, a pleasure. Thank you for making the time. His hand was dry and warm. His grip was perfect, firm, but not aggressive. Mr. Holloway, I said. My voice was tight. I let it be. I was supposed to be scared. Please, Grant. He slid into the booth opposite me, his movements fluid. He signaled a waiter. Just a still water, please. He turned his full, undivided, charming attention on me. He created an instant bubble of intimacy, cutting out the rest of the lobby. "I'm so glad we're doing this," he began, his voice a smooth, reasonable baritone. "This entire affair has been a terrible, terrible misunderstanding, a family tragedy, fueled by emotion." He steepled his fingers, the picture of thoughtful concern. "Your father? Daniel. He's a good man. Adeline. But he is passionate. He is desperate. He feels things so deeply, and when he's trying to protect his family, he makes mistakes. He doesn't see the full picture." He was already doing it, painting Daniel as the rogue element, the emotional fool, painting himself as the reasonable adult, cleaning up the mess. "And you," he said, his smile softening. "You're a professional. You're a brilliant analyst. But if I may be candid, your world is very black and white. Data, assets, liabilities, the real world, the one where families and fortunes intersect. It's all gray. What I do, what I offer, is a solution in the gray." I just stared, letting him talk. Every word was a golden shovel, digging his own grave. "I have a proposal," he said, leaning in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, friendly murmur. "A way to make all this unpleasantness simply vanish. This fight, the media, the lawyers, your job, it's all so destructive. You're an analyst. You know a bad position when you see one. You're in one." "What are you proposing?" I asked. "A new trust, a clean slate. You agree to move the assets from your grandmother's estate into a new, consolidated fund. It will be managed by a neutral, third-party arbitrator." His shell corporation. "This third party," he continued, "will ensure the funds are managed correctly, providing for your father's needs and securing your own future. In return," he held his hands up, a gesture of magnanimity, "the media stories stop. I have friends. I can ensure the retractions are posted by this afternoon. Your suspension at Northbridge? I can have that cleared up with a single phone call. We protect the family. We protect your future. We simply fix the data, Adeline, and this all goes away." The offer hung in the air. It was a perfect, elegant, criminal solution. He was offering to launder my inheritance and my reputation in one clean move. I let the silence stretch. I let him see the frightened, cornered woman he had profiled in his emails. Then, I reached into my purse. I pulled out the black USB drive, the bait. I slid it across the polished table. It stopped just short of his water glass. His eyes flickered down to it. His smile remained, but it became fixed. "Before we talk about solutions, Grant," I said, my voice cold, "I think you need to understand the data set. You think this is a family misunderstanding. You're wrong. You're dealing with a risk portfolio you haven't properly assessed." His smile tightened. The charm was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating curiosity. "What is this?" "It's the drive, the one Riley took from my father's desk." His eyes flared, just for a second, the first genuine emotion I had seen. He had been operating blind. "Well," he said, a note of impressed condescension in his voice, "you are full of surprises." He pulled a thin, impossibly sleek silver laptop from his leather briefcase. He opened it, booted it, and, without hesitation, plugged in the drive. In my mind's eye, I saw a light flash on a server on the 4th floor. Ping, target has engaged. His screen lit up. He opened the files. I watched his face. He was a professional. He showed nothing, but his eyes were moving, scanning, reading. He saw the spreadsheets, the carefully selected, real-looking email chains. He was verifying, he was assessing, and while he was reading, I changed the game. "That, of course, is just a copy." His head snapped up. My voice was ice. I leaned forward, mirroring his earlier intimacy. "The original data? And the entire contents of my grandmother's safe? That's all with the FBI. Has been for days." His face did not move. It was as if it were carved from wax, but his eyes went flat, dead. The mentor was gone. The monster was looking at me. "I gave them everything," I whispered. "The real ledgers, Grant, the offshore accounts in Panama, the wire fraud, the plan to have me declared unstable, the $250,000 loan agreement you forged with my signature on it." A muscle in his jaw twitched. "Oh," I added, "and I gave them the private investigator's report on Riley, the one from 15 years ago, the one with her original birth certificate." The color drained from his face. "I know she's your daughter," I said, each word a hammer blow. "I know you gave her to Daniel to bury your affair. I know you've been using her as a living, breathing piece of collateral her entire life. And now, so do they." He leaned back in the booth. The mask of civility was completely gone. He was no longer trying to charm me. He was looking at me as if I were a line item on a ledger he had to delete. His voice, when he spoke, was a low, vicious hiss. All the warmth was gone. "You are a fool," he spat the words. "You just detonated a bomb, and you're standing at ground zero. You should have taken the deal. Adeline, you're a child, playing a game you cannot possibly comprehend." "There was never a deal for me," I said. "No," he agreed, his eyes turning black. "There was a solution, and you just rejected it." He glanced past me, out the window, a thoughtful, chilling expression on his face. "It's a beautiful drive, isn't it? The coastal highway. So winding, so treacherous. A person could get distracted, look at their phone for just a second. A terrible, tragic accident." He locked his eyes on mine. "And that house, all those cliffs, you know, a colleague of mine, a very uncooperative man, had an accident near there a few years ago. Slipped. Tragic. They never even found the body. People get depressed. They've been through a lot. They become unstable. They make impulsive, final choices." He had just threatened a federal witness on a live wire. "Is that my new solutions grant?" I asked. He smiled, a thin, lipless expression. "Solutions, my dear, always present themselves." "Mr. Holloway?" A new voice, loud, clear, and calm. Grant snapped his head, annoyed. Agent Ruiz, the businessman, was standing at our table. "I'm in a private meeting," Grant snapped, his voice hard. "Grant Holloway," Ruiz said, and his voice was no longer that of a guest. It was a command. He dropped his coffee cup on the table and his hand went to his belt, flipping open a badge. "You are under arrest." For a single, frozen second, Grant didn't move. Then, the lobby exploded. It wasn't chaos. It was choreography. The couple by the window stood, blocking the exit. The waiter dropped his cloth, blocking the path to the bar. 2 more agents, the bellhops, had already secured the main doors. Marcus was on his feet, a solid wall between me and the table. Grant looked at me. He looked at Ruiz. He understood. He visibly composed himself, smoothing his suit jacket. "This is a ridiculous misunderstanding. This is a civil, financial negotiation." "This," Agent Ruiz said, grabbing Grant's arm and twisting it behind his back with practiced, brutal efficiency, "is conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, identity theft, and what was that last part? Oh, right, threatening a federal witness." He snapped the handcuffs on. "By the way, that USB you plugged in? My tech team sends their thanks. They've just finished a complete copy of your entire server. We didn't just get the playbook. Grant, we got the whole damn kingdom." The blood drained from Grant Holloway's face, the puppeteer. For the first time in his life, looked helpless. As they cuffed him, Ruiz spoke into his radio. "Package is secure. Execute the warrants. All teams, go." My phone buzzed. A text from Claire, from the 4th floor. "Now." At that exact second, across town, an FBI tactical team rammed the front door of Daniel Pierce's house. My father was arrested in his bathrobe, still trying to bluster, Lydia was served with a subpoena. My mother, Monica, was met at her apartment by two plainclothes agents and quietly escorted to a federal building to give her witness statement, and Riley, already deep in the system, was moved from her safe house to a protected, undisclosed location. Officially a ward of the federal government, the trap was shut. As agents led Grant Holloway through the lobby, a new sound erupted, shouting, and the flash of cameras. Miles Vega's tip to the press had been perfectly timed. A wall of reporters, who had been waiting across the street, swarmed the entrance. Grant Holloway, the untouchable, the invisible, the legend, being perp-walked, in handcuffs, in the lobby of a five-star hotel. Marcus grabbed my arm. "This way." He steered me through a side door, into a kitchen, and out into an alley where a black, unmarked car was waiting. We drove in silence, the radio on. It took less than 10 minutes. The news was already breaking. An hour later, I was back in Coronado Cove, the fortress. I was in the library, the TV on, the sound muted, and I saw it, my face, my old corporate headshot. But the chyron underneath didn't say greedy daughter. It didn't say unstable and erratic. The words scrolled across the screen. Financial titan Grant Holloway, arrested in massive fraud. Sources say FBI whistleblower was his own daughter's disinherited sister. A different channel. Father and associate arrested in conspiracy. Daughter cooperated with federal investigation. They were showing my face, then Grant's, then my father's, looking old and pathetic and confused as he was shoved into a police car. For the first time in my life, I was the subject of the news, and I wasn't the villain. I was the one who had finally turned on the lights. I sat there, watching my old life burn to the ground on live television, and I felt nothing, just the vast, cold, quiet echo of the end. It was 6 months later, 6 months of depositions, legal battles, and seeing my name transition from predatory daughter to key federal witness. 6 months of living in the sterile, air-conditioned quiet of federal buildings and lawyers' offices. The trial itself was almost an anticlimax. It was just pathetic. Grant Holloway's defense was predictable. He, the legitimate, brilliant financier, had been duped. He tried to paint Daniel Pierce as a rogue, a secret gambler, a desperate man who had misused Grant's generous financial guidance. Grant's lawyers were slick, but the evidence was overwhelming. The USB drive, the Grant H folder, was a perfect, immutable digital record of his crimes. The forensic accounting that Claire and the FBI had built from it was a fortress of its own. Daniel's defense was even more pathetic. He took a plea bargain. In exchange for testifying against Grant, his sentence would be reduced. He sat on the stand, a shell of the man who had screamed at me, looking old and gray and broken. He claimed he had been intimidated, manipulated, and dangled like a puppet by the terrifying Grant Holloway. He claimed he had done it all to protect Riley. Riley and I sat in the back row of the courtroom, side by side. We listened to this man, my father, her, nothing, recite our names. Adeline, Riley, as if they were just line items in a bad financial report. He never looked at us, not once. Then came my turn, the sentencing phase, the victim impact statement. The courtroom was silent when I stood. I didn't look at Grant. I didn't look at Daniel. I looked at the judge. "Your Honor," I began, my voice clear and steady, amplified by the microphone. For more than 20 years, I lived my life as a financial instrument. I was not a daughter. I was an ATM. I was a line of credit. I was an emergency fund. I was the person my family called when they needed money, and the person they ignored when they did not. I recounted the endless transactions, the college tuition, the credit card debts, the failed startups, the monthly loans that were never repaid. I spoke of living on instant noodles in my first apartment so I could help my father make a mortgage payment on a house he couldn't afford. I did all this, I said, believing that if I just paid enough, if I was just useful enough, one day I would earn the love that I was supposed to be given for free. Then, I finally turned. I looked at Daniel. His eyes were fixed on the table in front of him. "You," I said, my voice dropping. "You didn't just steal my money. You didn't just steal my credit or my grandmother's legacy. You stole my belief that I was worthy of being loved. You took my childhood, my 20s, my trust, and you monetized it. And when I finally once said no, you screamed, 'Get out!' And everyone at that table threw me away." I let the words hang in the air. "Today, I'm giving it all back to you. The shame, the responsibility, the consequences. I am no longer your ATM. I am no longer your line of credit. And I am no longer carrying this debt for you. You will carry it yourself." I turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, when it comes to sentencing, I have 2 different requests." The judge nodded. "Proceed, Ms. Sullivan." "For Grant Holloway," I said, glancing at the man in the expensive, ill-fitting suit. "I ask for no leniency, not one day. He is not a man who made a mistake. He is a predator who built a system. He destroyed my family. But I know, from the evidence I've seen, that my family is just one of many. He has destroyed lives. He is a black hole. The time he serves will never be too much for the damage he has caused. He must be permanently removed as a risk." "And for Daniel Pierce?" the judge asked. I took a deep breath. "My father is a different kind of liability. Sending him to prison for 20 years will not fix him. It will just warehouse him. I am not asking for a heavier sentence. I am asking for a better one. I ask that as a condition of any plea, he be required to undergo mandatory, long-term psychiatric therapy for narcissistic personality disorder and compulsive financial behavior. I ask that he be required to write a formal, itemized letter of apology to me and to Riley for every dollar he stole and every lie he told. And I ask that, upon his release, he be sentenced to perform 2,000 hours of community service, specifically filing paperwork in a back office for a nonprofit organization that provides support to victims of financial abuse. I want him to spend every single day looking at the faces of the people he created." The courtroom was silent. Daniel had his head in his hands. The judge looked at me for a long time. Then, he simply said, "Thank you, Ms. Sullivan." The sentence came down an hour later. Grant Holloway received the maximum: 45 years in a federal penitentiary, wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, with no possibility of parole. It was a life sentence. He would die in prison. Daniel Pierce received his deal: 5 years, with 2 suspended. And, the judge added, he was granting Ms. Sullivan's unorthodox but precise recommendations, all of them: the therapy, the letters, the 2,000 hours of service, just as I had described. My father's revenge was that he would, for the first time in his life, be forced to do the work. After. Riley and I stood on the courthouse steps. The media was gone. It was just us. "So," she said, her voice small. She was 22, but she looked about 15. "So," I replied. "I'm changing my name," she said abruptly. I'm not Holloway's. I filed the paperwork. I'm not a Pierce." "I know," I said. "What will you choose?" "I don't know. I have no name." "You could take Hart," I offered quietly. "Evelyn's name. She knew everything, and she protected you, in her own way, for 15 years. She tried to give you a life. Hart is a good, strong name. It's a place to start." She looked at me, her eyes filling with tears for the first time. "Riley Hart," she whispered. She nodded. "Okay, I like that." The next few years were the real work. The $20 million question was, what do I do with a fortress now that the war is over? I didn't need it. I didn't want it. I could sell it, take the money, and disappear. But I kept hearing Evelyn's voice. "I built you an ark. You don't just abandon an ark after the flood. You use it." I called Veronica. I called Claire. We met in the library, in front of the open, empty vault. "I'm starting a foundation," I said, and I'm funding it with the entire value of this house. 6 months later, the Harbor Light Foundation was born. I didn't sell Coronado Cove. I weaponized it. The main house, the one with the $20 million view, was not my home. It became the most exclusive, secure, and luxurious safe house in the country for women who were victims of high-stakes financial and emotional abuse. These women weren't just fleeing a fist, they were fleeing a signature. They were fleeing men who had, like Daniel, used their names to open cards, forge documents, and bury them in debt. The guest houses, down the hill, were converted into a legal and financial command center. Veronica took on pro bono cases. Claire ran an asset recovery workshop, teaching women how to find money that had been hidden from them. And I started to teach. I, the suspended analyst, taught Financial Defense 101. I taught women how to read a contract. I taught them how to spot the financial red flags of a manipulator. I taught them how to build a go-to-hell fund, just as Evelyn had taught me. And our team grew. My mother, Monica, now with her own hard-won spine, volunteered. She started a support group in the sitting room. Survivors of Coercive Silence, she called it, a group for women who had been, like her, too afraid to look. She was finally using her voice, and Riley Hart, after 2 years of intensive therapy, joined us. She, the golden child, started a workshop for young women. She taught them about the prison of toxic validation. She taught them how to untangle their self-worth from the demands of a narcissistic parent. One evening, I was standing on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the Pacific. I thought about that night, the one that started it all, the shattered glass, the smell of red wine on a white cloth, the scream, "Get out!" If that night hadn't happened, I'd still be Adeline Sullivan, the senior risk analyst, living in her city apartment, dutifully sending a check home every month. I would still be that walking, talking, automated teller machine, forever hoping that the next transaction would be the one that finally made me worthy. I would never have found the vault. I would never have found the truth. And I would never, ever have built this. I finally understood my grandmother's real plan. My revenge wasn't seeing Grant Holloway die in a cell. It wasn't seeing my father forced to file paperwork. Though both of those held a certain, precise justice, my real revenge was the woman who had just left the foundation that morning. A woman who had arrived with nothing but a garbage bag of clothes, and who had left with a clean credit report, a new job, and the keys to her own apartment. An apartment she had secured with her own independent bank account. That was my revenge. Every single woman who walked out of those gates, whole. The front door chimed. Rosa, who had stayed on as the house mother, was letting someone in. I went down the stairs. A new arrival, a woman in her 50s, holding a single, small suitcase. She looked terrified. Her eyes were red. She looked, I realized, just like my mother. Her son, Veronica had briefed me. He'd convinced her to invest her whole retirement. He'd mortgaged her house from under her. The woman looked up at me, standing in the massive foyer, and she flinched, like she was expecting to be told she was in the wrong place. I smiled. I walked over and I picked up her suitcase. "Welcome to Coronado Cove," I said, my voice warm. "I know this is all a lot, but I promise you, in here, you are safe." She looked at me, her eyes full of disbelief and fear. "Here," I said, leading her toward the main hall. "No one will ever be allowed to scream 'Get out' at you again. Here, you are the one who decides who gets to go and who gets to stay." Thank you so much for listening to this story. Let me know where you're listening from in the comments. I love to see where in the world you are and to share your thoughts. Please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories. Like this video, and give it a little extra support by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.